think we've got ourselves a live stream running. Looks like it anyway. My name's Moshe. I'm coming to you from Israel in the Galilee, and we've got a major development in the war with Iran and America that I'm going to need to discuss with you. And it's going to be a rather complicated, logistically complicated discussion about this war. And that is the Iranians are threatening to do a ground invasion of the Gulf oil producing states, which would be Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, and Oman, and maybe Jordan. Jordan would probably get Israel to protect Jordan because Jordan's on our border. I could get in the car in, I don't know, 30 minutes and I could be at the Jordan border. 40 minutes maybe. So, I mean, it's pretty close. They've got a border right with it, so we can't have that happen. Jordan could take care of themselves on the other hand, to some extent. To some extent. But the Iranians might be able to raise the Shiite militias or the Shiite lunatics up in Jordan to join them and attack their own government. This is a problem. Okay, so there's a lot of problems we got to talk about. Well, what they're trying to do is take the oil prices and run it up to $2, $3, $4, $500, whatever they could get away with, a barrel, and break everybody's economy, and then hope they come and make a surrender deal to Iran. Yeah, here's $300 billion in war reparations to rebuild. No sanctions. The UN's going to pass a law. No sanctions. You control the Gulf states. You can charge taxes. You can execute all the people in your own country. We don't care. You know, you can have nuclear weapons, nuclear bombs, nuclear plants. You can have 11 million ballistic missiles. If that's not enough, you could have 50 million or 500 million. We don't care. You know, just end this. Okay? See, remember, all the countries are run by Satan bots, and what's their motto? Basically, what they live their creed, what they live by, is he who has the most money is winning. Okay? Paper money worth nothing. Okay. So, but this is very serious, and we got to discuss it because the Americans don't have anywhere near the number of troops to defend against this. Okay? The troops they have in the Middle East are not fighting troops. Okay? They're doing radar. They're doing missile launches, anti-missile launches. They're doing intelligence. They're doing eavesdropping. They're running radar. They're doing logistics and support. They're not there. You know, this is not infantry that has advanced, you know, that has 6 months of infantry training. These are not Rangers. These are not Marines. These are just people doing various things in the military that it's, you know, they're driving a truck. They're loading missile launches. They're taking care of naval ships in Bahrain. They're taking care of American aircraft in Jordan, in Saudi Arabia, wherever else they have them. Okay, they're not fighting troops, and Iran wants to do a ground invasion, and they could just roll into Kuwait and then work their way east, knock off country to country. So we need to discuss this. You need to understand it. And remember the snare, Jeremiah 24 verse, no, Jeremiah 50 verse 24. Daughter of Babylon's in a snare. And this is part of the snare. And I've told you years ago now, North Korea, China, Iran, Russia, Belarus, 3 or 4 other crazy Muslim countries would really love to get rid of the Americans because then they could try to pull Sharia law all over the world, okay? Forced conversions and everything else they like to do. So, and of course, get rid of Israel. And if they see America take this bait and bring a lot of their soldiers in to the Middle East, then Russia starts trouble in Europe. Oh, it can be soft trouble in Norway, Denmark, Finland, Sweden, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, or Poland and Romania. Take your pick. You got a plethora of countries that Putin's not terribly afraid of that would cause NATO to have a fit, and then America's got to come help support NATO. And then you see North Korea start agitating in a more serious way South Korea, some border clashes, maybe a few missiles, something where they're going to get really agitated, but they're not going to say, wait, hold on, we don't want to do a full invasion of North Korea over this. Let's see if we can calm it down. Typical American nonsense, okay? Not Teddy Roosevelt style, Donald Trump style. Let's sit down and make a deal, And then China agitates the Taiwan thing, and now the American troops are spread all over the world. And then what happens? Instead of fighting in all these countries, they attack America. Now, does this ground invasion of the Gulf states have to be that? No. Do I think it's prophetically going to get to that point? Maybe, but I think it's prophetically going to get to the point of the destruction of Iran. In Jeremiah 49, verse 34 to the end. It's called Elam back then. And Elam can include the Gulf states and Iraq. And last night there was a lot of fighting in northern Iraq. Iran was attacking the Kurds heavily, and there were fires from all the explosives and everything, See, America might use the Kurds to attack Iran, which they've been using already. So Iran doesn't want to see that happen. America could try to use Syria to attack Iran, but I think that's pretty stupid. Real stupid. This might lead to a ground invasion of Iran by the Gulf states. Or not. You see, we'll talk about all this, okay? But I want to tell you that as far as serious as this is real serious, because they will. Trump can close the Persian Gulf, open the Persian Gulf, do whatever he wants. If they destroy the Gulf states, oil wells and refineries and pipelines, Trump could do whatever he wants with the Persian Gulf, and there's no oil. And they're going to try to get the oil, and that's going to get Trump mad, because he's going to say, well, wait a minute, why can't I steal the oil, So, this is real serious, and you're not going to hear a lot of people talk about this with sincerity, because they're not going to go against their customers that buy their survival equipment. They're not going to do that. They're not going to irritate them. But right now, America is got a chance. America's odds, let's say 10 is the best, 1 is the worst. They're at about a 3. They got good air support, and that'll impede a ground invasion. But I'll explain to you how they'll do it. They're going to use the same tactics that you see Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Iran-backed militias, very similar tactics. Um, and I'll explain to you what those are going to be like. And you'll see it's a real nightmare. And Trump doesn't have anywhere near the amount of military he needs and the correct amount. Look, the soldiers he has there are in forts, and they could lock themselves in, and they could take, their M16s and their Browning 50 cals and stuff, and they could shoot while they wait for air support to come drop bombs and stuff like that. But it's, you know, if the Iranians penetrate and get into the fort, how do the bombs help? They're not going to blow their own fort up with their own soldiers. Iranians know these things. I'm going to put a post up, which is going to take some seconds, but I'm going to have to stop talking, or I'm going to just create typos and keep doing it. And that's a pain in the neck, isn't it? What's going on here? Nothing. Okay, here I go. I gotta get this picked up. Let's get it. There we go. Let's see if it took. Probably. Yep. Okay. Now this is where we see. Look at how many people are in the chat now. What is it? Something like 25. Watch them leave. Being a Bible believing site, I have to do some praise now. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 All right, I have a couple of quick prayer requests here. For RG, Romeo Girl, RG, Romeo Girl, pray that the water or mold doesn't get into the house or the basement. So for RG, Romeo Girl, RG, pray that mold or water doesn't get into the house for RG, okay? The basement's part of the house, really. All right. We have a prayer request for a cat. And we do pretty good with our prayers for the cat. I prayed already, so I'll ask you to pray for the cat's name is Foxy. Foxy the cat has a wound that was abscessed, and then you know how they scratch it and they bite it and they get it to open up and drain. And well, that happened, but we want to pray for Foxy the cat. I guess we'll call it the wound. Gets healed up without infection or problems. So pray for Foxy the cat's wound to get healed up without infections or any problems. Okay. So if you're a believer, you should pray for these people. All right. Now, let's spend a little time talking about what happened last night, and then we'll get into ground invasion with Iran. Okay. Um, first, there was some lying going on. The Iranian army was saying it struck two ships last night, and they exploded oil tankers in the Persian Gulf area. CENTCOM, which is the American command center for the region there, said no, it never happened. So the Iranians do stuff like that. The Iranians struck military targets in Kuwait and Jordan, and they also hit Saudi Arabia last night. This was the first time in a long time, many, many weeks, that the Iranians hit Saudi Arabia directly with missiles. Now, the Saudis have a mutual defense treaty or pact with Pakistan. Pakistan are some pretty tough hombres, okay? They'll fight. They got a big military, and they're fighters, okay? And they're Muslim, out there, gaga goo goo, but they will fight. And they told Iran that was the last time you're going to attack Saudi Arabia. If you do it again, we're joining Saudi Arabia in the fight against you. In other words, Pakistan was trying to act as a negotiator and calm things down with Iran, because they knew they had this mutual defense treaty and they didn't want to get into the fight with Iran. Now, China is very nice and buddy-buddy with Pakistan and Iran. So what does China do? Nothing. They're not that serious. They're not, they'll send them a memo, hey, try to make peace, something like that. So, what's gonna happen now? I mean, are the Iranians gonna listen to Pakistan and not attack Saudi Arabia? Never. They'll attack Saudi again, or they'll maybe get nervous and use the Houthis, but they're not going to be intimidated. See, in their opinion, they're rather immune from a ground invasion. Immune is a little bit going overboard, but to do a ground invasion into Iran is very, very complicated with a massive amount of manpower and equipment. And it might take years. So, and you may never get it. You may go in there and fight for a year or two if prophetic time allows, which I doubt. Go in there and fight for a year or two and then just leave. Afghanistan all over again, but worse. Okay. My iPad did its stupid thing and made me lose my position. Okay. So the Iranians are continuing to disable the bases in these Gulf state countries, which appears now to be part of their plan to do a ground invasion. Okay? So there's a tie together because they want these bases rather well destroyed so they're not that serviceable. They can't work so well. So they could roll in and get rid of the soldiers. Look, the first country they might hit is the one closest to them, Kuwait. They got a pig dictator piece of garbage there. I could care less about this pig dictator in Kuwait, really. Nobody should care about him. Okay, so what they'll do is they'll roll in, and America keeps about 5,000 people on a base over there. Okay? What do those 5,000 people do? Well, let's talk. Okay? You got administrators, here's your paycheck, here's your benefits, here's this, here's that. You got a quartermaster corps that's keeping, uniforms and boots and, all of that nonsense there, right? Then you got computer people working on the computers, right? Okay, you got medical people taking care of them. You got cooks making the food. You got transportation with buses and jeeps and trucks and moving stuff around, right? Then you got people monitoring the radar. Then you got people working the anti-aircraft systems, the anti-aircraft missiles, like the Patriots and the THAADs. And they're monitoring that. Then you got intelligence people that are sitting there trying to pick up intel from Iran, getting intel from the Pentagon and all that, right? And I can keep going. You got gardeners. You got maintenance people that paint, fix the pipes, right? And maybe that stuff's contracted out. I don't know. And then you got fighters. You got people there that'll defend the base. But what percentage is it? Could it be 1,500 out of 5,000? That's high, I think. Maybe 300, 500. That's it. So everybody could hunker down in the base, unless the base has been bombed many, many times by Iran, and your walls are broken, your gates are broken, your radar is down, your electric generator is off and on. A lot of buildings have been destroyed, right? Under normal conditions, the people, the non-combat soldiers would get issued arms and they'd be back up, and the main combat guys would be located strategically in parts of the bases where there's shelter, like on the top of the walls or whatever, and they would put up a fight with whatever they had, which could be substantial. They might have artillery. They might actually have a couple of tanks. They probably don't, but they might. They would have armored Humvees, armored personnel carriers. They'd have heavy machine guns, medium machine guns, artillery, shoulder-fired missiles, plenty of stuff, right? And they could, drive away invaders in a real situation where the base was intact. But if the base is in shambles, they're not going to hold up. And Iran's not going to come after them with 5,000 people. They'll come after them with 20,000, 25,000. They're going to want to surrender. Okay? And what they're going to go after is hostages. Living, breathing hostages. Women, men, civilians, CIA guys, whatever they could get, right? Could the Americans run an evacuation on the people in the base using a lot of aircraft, Apache attack helicopters, A-10 Warthogs, F-15s, and F-16s to repel the attackers while they have helicopters come in and keep extracting? The problem is the helicopters are going to take tremendous fire and it might be dangerous for them, but maybe they can. Maybe the Iranians let them extract. So what happens when they extract? Guess who's moving into the base? Iran. If they don't move in, they'll demolish it. But what, they might move in, but what they're going to do is they're going to occupy Kuwait. I don't know what they're going to do with that pig dictator of Kuwait. I don't care what they do to him, really. They could take him up on the roof and drop him off head first. They could shoot him. They could keep him. I don't care what they do to him. Will they make him wire money to them and stuff if they get him alive? Oh yeah, they won't get him alive. The Americans will tell him, hey, we don't want to lose you. Come, and they'll bring him to a secure location, maybe in Germany or something. I mean, really secure, something like that. They're not going to take him to Israel because Israel is not going to want that. Okay, Germany or America, they take him to. Okay. When they move in, did you ever hear the term human shield? They're going to occupy places in the civilian areas, okay? They're going to put artillery or missile launchers in between two apartment buildings, okay? They'll move into the hospitals, the ground troops. They'll throw the Kuwaitis out and say, this is our hospital, get the heck out of here. They might leave some of the critical people there. I don't know exactly what they'll do. They usually want to leave some hospital patients, civilians in there for the human shield effect, okay? So if they were the only ones staying in the hospital, then America could bomb the hospital. But if the hospital had 450 beds and they throw 300 out, they got 150, they can't bomb that, okay? And they're going to infiltrate in the civilian areas, so the aircraft are going to be minimally effective in destroying them. Because they're not going to want to destroy the good people of Kuwait. Honestly, Israel doesn't care. We're not going to go out and protect Kuwait. Goodbye. You know what they're going to say, what the Israelis are going to say, really. I'll tell you this because it's funny, but this is what they're going to say. Iran and Kuwait are fighting. They're going to say, we wish them both great success in their war. Which means go kill each other. Okay? When they take Kuwait over, are they going to go blow the oil fields up? I doubt it. Because they're going to be looking to the end of the war, and Kuwait is now going to be Iran. It's not going to work out that way, but that's what they're going to do. Okay. Then they move over. After they knock off Kuwait, then they start going to Qatar and Bahrain. You know, these pig dictators are lackadaisical. They got militaries, but they don't put them. They'd rather go get a Rolls Royce and have the paint stripped off it, okay, and then put a layer of very thin gold on it, and put some kind of protective layer over the gold that's clear, and say, hey, I got a gold Rolls Royce, or I got a diamond ring the size of a golf ball. You know, that's what they like. You know, the sheets on my bed cost $3,900. This is some amazing cotton. You know, my bath towels cost $250 each. Yeah, this is what they're about. Okay? Some of these idiots take their floor and they won't put hard tile on it. They'll put leather tile on it. You know what that costs? Probably a square like this is, what, $150? You know? Or $500? You know. What good's that money gonna do now? You can see them throwing the gold out in the street. What good is it? You know, now what are the Iranians gonna do to them? Well, it's will the Iranians rape the Muslim women? Not likely. Will they just take the men and murder them? Not likely. Uh, will they tell them just be good citizens and respect us as your superior warlords and you'll be fine? Yeah. Are they going to steal the wealth? Oh gosh, yes. Are they going to move into the generals and the colonels? Are they going to move into the mansions? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They're going to just confiscate the houses, you know. These guys got a, 20,000 square foot house on 11 acres, you know, they're going to move in, you know. They're going to drive their Rolls Royces and stuff. No, they need to drive military vehicles. Later on they can, but no. Will they steal all the gold that Kuwait has? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They're not going to leave them wealthy. They're not going to leave them, you know, they see them as an enemy because they gave harbor to the Americans and they let the Americans set up a base and launch missiles into their country. So they're finished with it, you know. But I don't know. I mean, they might go to raping and throwing them off roofs and machine gunning them because the Kuwaitis are going to fight back, more than likely. In these countries, the guy probably has 100,000, AK-47s that'll hand out and give everybody, 600-700 rounds of ammo and let them go kill the Iranians, and then it'll be a different story. They'll just murder them, rape them, throw them off the roof, kill them all. That could happen. If they resist, yeah, that's probably what'll come, because they'll start doing these things to break the resistance down. And they could just go through one country after another. How long do I think it would take them to conquer Kuwait? I don't know. 10 days. Less, a week. I don't know. Quick, maybe a day or two. It'd be like Hitler knocking off countries in 1939 and 40 and that era. It's it doesn't take a lot. Okay, so Iran is continuing to hit the military bases there, and that's one reason why they're not hitting Israel, because they know they're not going to be able to go play their game and invade Israel. Israel would crack up laughing if they tried to invade us. So they were hitting last night, like in Kuwait, the Iranians hit an ammunition depot in a military base, of course, um, and they hit headquarters buildings on a base. Um, and they hit what's called several communication bridges. That must be a bad translation out of Arabic. Uh, Bridges that probably were important to the base. In Jordan, um, fuel tankers at the Al blah 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 base in Jordan were also targeted. Um, the state broadcasting said, okay, fuel tankers would be, maybe Jordan has one or two, they would be American. The Iranians said they attacked a depot of U.S. drones in Bahrain and destroyed Bahrain's main artificial intelligence center. Artificial, probably AI. Yeah, AI is what they mean. With ballistic missiles and drones. It seems to me that perhaps the Patriot missiles are running dry or something because they're getting more successful. I think this was a direct result of these activities last night. The U.S. Sent dozens in the plural, so that could be someplace between 24 and say 48 refueling planes to Israel. Um, then this is thought to be ahead of a possible escalation, but I think it was more of a measure to uh, keep the refueling tankers safe. See, all the time we're not fighting Iran, our factories are churning out Iron Dome, David Sling, Arrow 2, and we have our laser uh, called Iron Beam, and they're being manufactured steadily. So we keep getting stronger and stronger with defense. Offense, we're doing fine, you know. Um, Now they're saying 10 tankers are going to arrive Friday and Saturday and be stationed at Air Force Base rather than Ben Gurion Airport, um, which is yeah, we're concerned over congestion at the airport. Now, these 10 tankers, they might be coming in from Europe or something, or America. So there's probably two things going on: a shift of where they're parking the oil tankers, moving them into Israel, and they're probably bringing more in from uh, Europe and America. Iran says it's prepared, it's preparing, it's prepping for a ground invasion. Okay, this is a nightmare. Okay, do you think you're going to see Trump go and start pulling? You know, he's got, they say 50,000 troops in the Middle East. I used to say 56, 58,000, 50. It's in the 50 something range, you know. But I would say 2/3 to 3/4 of them are not combat troops. Okay? So where are we at here? What's the story? Well, it's a bad thing, and Trump might be playing a sick game. I doubt it. He doesn't play this way. The sick game would be let some American bases get overrun and lose a lot of soldiers, and then go back to Congress and say, come on, you know. We're going to lose everything in the Middle East, you know, and get a declaration of war. Then when he gets a declaration of war, the snare just gets worse for him. Then he starts flying. You know, when they use the big transport planes for soldiers, they get a little over 300 on a plane. That's it. So let's talk about that. If you send 10 planes, you get 3,000. If you send 100 planes, you get 30,000. If you send 300 planes, you get 90,000. No, I mean 3,000. Oh, wait. Let's try this again. You get 300 on a plane. You get about 3,000 on 10 flights. 30,000. On 100, so you'd have to send a massive amount of planes. Are we seeing that now? No. Now, you don't just fly planes over. What do you do with them when they're here? It's hot. It's summer now. You need shelter for them. You can't just leave them out in the street, you know. You got to have shelter. You got to have food. You got to have medical. You got to have comms. You got to have clothes. You got to have toilets, showers, laundry. You know, you got to have an infrastructure. That is not going to take a week. That's going to take, you know, 2-3 months. Does Trump have 2 or 3 months? Nope. Does he have 2 or 3 weeks? Maybe. This idiot went astray when he had them running months ago and it stopped the war with his idiot negotiations again. Unbelievable. Had he not stopped the war, this wouldn't be going on. But he did. Now, what about the special forces he has? You got to understand the difference between special forces and infantry. Can special forces function as infantry? Not if they're not. That's not how they operate. Yeah, they could. You could force them into the role, but you're putting, you're taking a square peg and banging it into a round hole to make it fit. That's not how those guys are trained. They tried to avoid gunfights drastically because they're in small numbers. What's a big movement of special forces in an Arab country going to look like? 12 guys? You know, instead of 4, maybe 12, and then they encounter 60 or 70 soldiers. You think they're going to win? No, they're going to lose. The 60 or 70 soldiers are going to start calling for armor, for artillery, for rockets, for mortars, for helicopters, for fighter jets, anything and everything, while they keep these special forces pinned down to kill them. Chances of special forces getting out of this are slim. What they got to do is they got to get exfiltrated out of the area. And sometimes an exfiltration isn't immediately available. They might have to stall for a half hour or an hour and hold them off. You know, that's pretty life-threatening. They might be able to get fighter jets to come over there and drop some ordnance and spray bullets at them while they're waiting for a helicopter to get them out of there. But they got a lot of problems with that. They're not set up for that. That's the Marines, that's the Rangers, that's the 101st Airborne. These guys are good at that. But you got to bring large amounts of them in. See, Iran's not winning the fight here with America, and they know it. So they're not going to continue the same theater or methodology of warfare with America when it's just keeps it keeps leading them into doom and gloom. They changed the program. Okay, now we're going to do ground invasion. Let's take a look at what Iran has. You know, let's take a look, okay? How many tanks does Iran have now that actually function, if you could figure it out or find out? Last time I checked, it was a huge number. They estimate that the active tanks that they have is about 1,500. But, you know, we don't know. And we don't know how many tanks they've been preparing that were not active. So they might have 2,000. Their tanks read like T-72S. That's, I think, a Russian tank. T-72Z. Upgraded Chieftain tanks. M60A1 upgrades. Older M47, M48 tanks. Indigenous Karar and Zulfigar tanks that they made limited numbers of in the past. So, you know, could they take 200 or 300 tanks and roll into Kuwait? Sure. Let's see how many tanks Kuwait has. Let's take a look, okay? How many active tanks does Kuwait have, and the same for Qatar and Bahrain? Kuwait has about 367 tanks. Okay, they got more than I thought, so they probably have to come in with 400 or 500 tanks, but maybe not. Um, Qatar has 62 tanks. Could somebody say sitting duck? Bahrain has 100 tanks. Could somebody say sitting duck? The Kuwaitis have 218 M1A3, no, M1A2. These are Abrams tanks. They're not so super fragilistic. They're decent enough. And about 149 M84 AB tanks. Iran is loaded with anti-tank missiles. They're going to give them. They're going to hand them out like candy to the soldiers, and the Abrams tanks are not going to resist. They're not. That's an older tank. I think it goes back to the 90s or something, and it's not going to be resistant to the Iranian shoulder-fired anti-tank missiles. Um, Qatar has 62 Leopard 247. That's some older. Yeah, that's kind of modern, but not brand new. Um, it came from Germany, and I believe they'll fall prey to the Iranian shoulder-fired anti-tank missiles. Iran doesn't have much in terms of tanks, okay? Bahrain has about 180, 180 M60 A3 tanks, but the general reported division, okay, about 100 active tanks. Yeah, that's the stuff, they don't do the maintenance on them very well. That's how smart they are, you know. They want to look for the latest radar Rolex to come out with a meteorite dial and emeralds and sapphires and rubies around the dial. That's what they want to worry about. They don't pay attention to the tanks. Okay, now let's look for military, just gross military strength. Um, Looking at Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, give me a status of their military aircraft. Okay. The Qatar has about 108 planes, which are F-15s and Eurofighters. They got some good planes. That'll be a problem for Iran. Kuwait has Eurofighter Typhoons, about 50 to 80. They got A-18s. Those are older. They don't know about their status. So they have some planes that are modern that they they will use. And Bahrain has F-16s about 28 to 35. They don't have nothing. Qatar is the Air Force problem. They actually have 48 F-15 advanced Eagles. That's a serious plane. That will give Iran big headaches. Um, they have 36 Rafales. Um, those are reasonably decent planes. 24 Eurofighter Typhoons. Yep, that's decent fighter. And they have 12 uh, Mirage 2000 aircraft. What are the size of the armies for Kuwait, Bahrain, and Qatar? See, I think they'll start with Kuwait and then work west. They'll hit Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar. The next one would be UAE, and that's going to be a tougher one, if they ever get that far. Kuwait has a total of 11 to 12,000 troops. Okay, that puts them in the category of worse than a sitting duck. Qatar has 12,500 troops. No, I'm sorry. It's a little bit higher with these guys. Kuwait, counting everything, gets to 17,000 or maybe 25,000. Qatar, about 26,000. But this is counting accountants, nurses, cooks. You know, the combat people are at most a third, maybe a fifth even. You know, Bahrain has nothing, 8,000. But what are you going to do with a soldier? Hand him a rifle and put him on the modern battlefield? He's worthless with a rifle on the modern battlefield. What is it? That doesn't work. Okay. Regarding Iran, how much mobile artillery do they have? How much towed artillery do they have? How much mobile missile pod launchers do they have? Mobile artillery is something that looks like a tank, but it has a larger artillery piece on it that has greater range and a more powerful shell, more firepower. Okay. Towed artillery for Iran, approximately 2,000. That's nothing to sneeze at. multiple launch rocket systems, about 1500. That's a pod. It might have 16 or 24 rockets, little 2 3/4 inch ones, and they go, they launch like a machine gun, and they're very potent if you lay them into enemy troops. Uh, then it says Iran's total uh, yeah, with self-propelled. So on self-propelled, Iran has basically about 300 or 400. That's all. They may not send those. Just in passing, the current thought for serious missile launchers, ballistic missile launchers, is now mobile ballistic missile launchers. They have about 200. See, Trump had them down to with with the help of Israel. They were down to maybe 40 of those. But they rebuild them and they build new ones. Now, Iran doesn't have aircraft, but Iran has missiles that they could use and drones, tons of them, to support the ground invasion. So they will get on the horn and call Iran and say, we got 400 guys pinned down over here, and the fire is coming from here, and then Iran will put drones in the air and start firing missiles at that area and break up the attack on their own troops. Not as efficient or effective as running airplanes with bombs, but it could hurt. It could help. It could help, okay? If Trump doesn't do anything like bring in many plane loads of Rangers, airborne, Marines, the Iranian invasions are going to be working. Will Europe do anything to help these countries? Forget it. Europe is going to do nothing. Nothing. When is Iran going to start? Well, if they announced it yesterday, they're probably going to start within a week. They're not going to give America 6 weeks' notice. They gave short notice, so Trump won't do anything about it. See, predominantly, Trump's military forces in these bases is not what it needs. Now, this is where I'm a little confused. Iran takes a column, right? I don't know, let's say 25,000 soldiers, and they start rolling them into Kuwait. Why won't America bomb the Iranian column moving towards Kuwait and blow it up. Let me get a couple of facts that I don't know, but we'll get it real quick. What is the distance by land from Iran into Kuwait, and do they have a common border? They don't have a border, which I thought was the case. Kuwait has a land border with Iraq and Saudi Arabia. I didn't know they had a land border with Saudi Arabia. Let's see. One theory is they'll go from Iran to Iraq to Kuwait. Uh, it's frightening close. This trip is about 100 miles. Wow, that's a quick trip, guys. You could do 100 miles, in 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Maybe that's why Iran's attacking the Kurds every day, because they don't want Trump to have the Kurds deploy against them. To go from uh, Bashar of Iran to Kuwait City, uh, it's going to run them about 370 miles. There's different routes they could go. They'll probably enter Kuwait in 2 or 3 different points. They're not going to come in just one, okay? Because that means Kuwait has to spread their troops around to stop them. Kuwait has to go to the border in several locations with their troops to stop them. However, they have such a small amount of troops that you see the royal family is going to want to have, in an invasion, they're going to want to have at least several hundred soldiers surrounding their palaces where their families are going to be. They're probably going to leave the country, but they're going to want their palaces protected. Then you got to protect your at least one airport and at least one pier, and then you got to protect some of your government buildings, and you got to protect your military bases if possible, and then you got to worry about your infrastructure, and they are just never going to make it. They're never going to make it. Iran will overrun them. Now, let's see something else. What countries do Qatar and Bahrain border? Try to get a sequence of how this will flow. And they might they might go into all three countries in the same day or something. Uh, Qatar is an interesting critter. It has only one land border with Saudi Arabia. Bahrain has no natural land borders because it's an island country. Uh, it's connected to Saudi Arabia by the King Fahd Causeway, but that is a bridge connection, not a natural land. How far is Bahrain and Qatar from Kuwait by land in miles? I'd rather have miles than kilometers. From Kuwait City to Bahrain, about 300 miles. They'd have to pass through Saudi Arabia. They don't have a problem with that. From Kuwait City to Doha. Okay, let's get this redone. Redo these distances starting from the border of Kuwait closest to Qatar and Bahrain to measure the distance from the Kuwait border to the borders of Qatar and Bahrain closest to Kuwait. Yeah, I want to get it more militarily than the capital cities. I'm not interested in that. It'll get it. It'll just take a few seconds. Um, no, Kuwait's pretty far, 350 miles or so from Qatar is from Kuwait. Uh, Bahrain's about 250 miles. Okay. Um, the UAE we'll have to worry about after that, and then Oman and Jordan. Jordan will be a problem for them. Jordan may not be worth it for them, for the Iranians. Why? Jordan doesn't export any oil. they make a little oil for themselves. Now, let's take a look at the Jordan military, and you'll get an idea why Jordan isn't something Iran's going to be overzealous. Regarding Jordan, what is the size of their military? How many tanks are they known to have? How much aircraft does their military have? Jordan has between 100 and 115,000 active duty military. See, that's different. And they have up to 100,000 reservists. So they could be running at 200,000 in the military. Now that's a little bit too much for Iran to try to knock off as a ground, for a little ground expedition. That's a big battle. Jordan has about 450 main battle tanks that are in active service. That's not so much fun for Iran either. Um, in addition to those 450, they have hundreds of older tanks in storage, including additional Challenger ones, M60s, and Chieftain, and all different kinds. Okay, so they're in many hundreds of tanks. Military aircraft, about 250 military aircraft. Jordan is not something that Iran's looking forward to. And they're more off on the side because it's not an oil producing country. But that's a heck of a big expedition to try to take on Jordan, okay? And you got to remember that Israel will probably help Jordan if the Iranians try to get within even 600 or 800 miles of Israel. They're not going to want them in Jordan. We'll bomb them. That's something that I don't think they are interested in seeing come to pass. That might be if they take the other countries over, then they may try to go after Jordan, but I don't see it. Okay, now let's look at the UAE, which is another one they're probably going to. Now we go to the UAE. What is the size of their military? How many tanks do they have? And how much military aircraft do they have? The UAE they'll have to knock off, but I think that'll come after Kuwait, Bahrain, and Qatar because it's a progression, Uh, okay. They got about 65,000 active duty. That's a problem for Iran. And they got about 100 to 130,000 reservists. So with the reserve getting called up, and they could hit 200,000. That's a real problem for Iran. That's a lot of infantry. Tanks. I'm not giving you a full analysis of this. We're just getting a rough cut here. Um, 268 Leclerc tanks currently in service. When you take into account older tanks and their reserves, 354. So if they get invaded, they're going to pull out a lot of older tanks too, which is just, an older tank is going to be slow. Its armor is going to be inferior. Its artillery piece will be there, maybe not as big and long range. It'll have machine guns, and it's a threat to the Iranians, a serious threat. Um, they've got 386 aircraft. Um, Wait a minute. Approximately 386 aircraft under the traditional Air Force count, but approximately 500 to 550 aircraft and helicopters when all the material. Okay, so you got Army and Navy have aircraft. They have approximately 135 combat aircraft, 80 F-16s, 55 Mirage. Those are decent fighters. They got 30 Apache attack helicopters, 80 Black Hawks. That'll rain death down on the Iranians. No. Oman would be a sitting duck. We'll do Oman, but regarding Oman, regarding OMAN, what is the size of their military? How many tanks do they have? And how much military aircraft? I'm just getting capsules of this. We're not doing a serious analysis. They got up to 47,000 active personnel in their military. I don't think they run a reserves. They got 117 tanks. Okay, aircraft. 127 total aircraft. That's with helicopters and everything. They got 24 fighters, a dozen F-16s, 12 Eurofighters. This is nothing. So the two that are a problem would be the UAE and Jordan, and they would have to be demolished militarily. I would think Iran would go after them militarily. How would they do it? Well, they would knock out, if they get serious about ending the UAE, they'll knock out their water desalinators, their electrical grid, their airports, their piers, their oil wells, oil refineries. All this could happen in a day or two. And that's it. I mean, how many electrical grid targets does the UAE really need to hit to take it out? Maybe 10, you know. Probably just need to hit 2 airports or 3 at most, 1 or 2 ports, not much. Water desalinators, I have no idea. They might have 10 or 12 or 3 or 4, I don't know. These are fixed targets that are not well protected, they're not shielded, they have Patriot systems that America put up there recently, that's it. And you just swarm attack it. That will put the UAE in turmoil. The UAE is much richer than Jordan. Jordan doesn't export oil, that's one big reason why. Okay. So, is Iran faking about this? Oh no. Can Iran attack these countries with ships? I don't see how. Go-fast boats are not suitable for this. They don't carry troops. I don't think Iran has any capability. They're going to go by ground. And they run the risk of America attacking their ground troops. However, the Iranians don't think Trump has the stomach to blow up 5 or 10,000 soldiers, you know, like their hands and legs and heads go flying, right? In different directions. No, they don't think he can do it. We'll see. Are they thinking of going in just to destroy the American bases in these countries and then withdraw? Nah, that's not the way you do it. No. If they were trying that, they would just day and night keep throwing missiles at the bases. You don't need long-range missiles. It's a medium-range missile, that's all. And believe me, they're going to go into the civilian areas and they're going to set their soldiers up there. They're going to put their missile launchers there, their artillery there, their mortars there. They'll go in hospitals, they'll go in schools, they'll go in these type of things, okay? They'll move into government buildings. I've seen it. You've got two apartment buildings, 6 stories high, and in between the apartment buildings, you got, I don't know, 15, 25-foot space, right? And they put missile launchers and artillery and mortars right there in between the two buildings. And that's where the soldiers hang out that operate this equipment. So what are you going to do? Drop a bomb in between the two buildings? Can America get that precise? Yes, they can. It's dangerous. They can. And what happens when the 500-pounder lands in between two big apartment buildings? It damages both the apartment buildings, probably causes some deaths, and makes the building and its foundation unstable, and the people have to leave the building. It could also collapse an entire building. That would maybe fall into another building and collapse that. You get it? So will Trump do that? I don't know. I really don't know. On my Telegram, I put up that they posted a $10 million reward for anybody that kills Trump. That's a little light. You'd need to have probably about 50 million because you'd have to hide for the rest of your life. Okay? If prophetic time allowed, they'd look for you for 15, 20 years. After 20 years, you would be like, back burner, or maybe after 10 years even. But for the first bunch of years, they'd have teams looking for you day and night, It's going to be a bloodbath because they're going to try to hold off these soldiers. Because they don't know what the soldiers are going to do to their women and children and old people and their country and their wealth, and they don't know what's going to happen. So they're going to try to hold them off. And that's going to be, they're going to coordinate with CENTCOM. And just because the Iranians said it, do you think Trump's going to bring in 100,000 ground troops, like, Rangers, which is technically a special forces? That's the lower level of special forces. That's where you start out with the Rangers, and then you would escalate into a higher level of special forces. Is he going to bring them in, and Marines, and airborne? Probably not. Will this cause the Gulf states to invade Iran? Nah, they're too punked out. They're too scared. They won't do it. No, they won't. They'd get slaughtered if they did. They won't do it. So remember, when you got these American soldiers, in the bases here, they're working with the Navy vessels. They're maintaining the Navy boats and the fleet. They're working with the aircraft, like at Qatar. Bahrain is Navy, Qatar is the aircraft. They got a lot of them working on aircraft. They're working on missile launchers. They're working on anti-missile systems like the Patriot. They're working with healthcare. They're working with food, logistics, quartermaster corps. If we see, if Trump starts bringing troops in, we're going to pick it up from the guys that watch for this stuff, okay? I don't know where he's going to land these troops. This is another logistical problem. Is he going to land them in Kuwait when the base is already damaged? Let's say he says, okay, I'll just put another 7,000 soldiers in Kuwait. That's substantial. That with the 5,000 already there, he's got 12,000 American soldiers there. If he brings in 7,000 fighters, and he's got maybe 1,500 previously, he's got 8,500. Yeah, that's going to give Iran some difficulties. But he's got to also bring tanks, personnel carriers, artillery, mortars, rocket pods, all sorts of things. Humvees, lots of stuff. But then he's got to do the same thing for Bahrain and Qatar, and that's not, what's a solid level of troops, say for Kuwait to repel around 25,000, and there can't be one base. They got to be at like 3, 4 different bases, and they got to put them on the border to stop them from getting in. Trump's just not able to do it in time. I don't think he's going to be able to do it preemptively after they attack one country and then start attacking a second country on the ground. Then I think Congress, which are idiots, will wake up and they might declare war. I don't know. I don't know. Jordan and Kuwait got hit pretty good last night. The very interesting thing here is Pakistan. Believe me, the Iranians are not going to be intimidated by Pakistan. Pakistan is far away. Okay, let's run a distance. Let's run air miles from Pakistan to Tehran. Okay, let's get a feel for this, right? Okay. Regarding Pakistan, what is the air mile distance in miles from Pakistan to Tehran in Iran. Um, 1,220 kilometers, so about 760 miles. It's not that far. Closest is 760 miles. That's not as far as I thought, but that doesn't mean that's where the Pakistan Air Base is. So it might be 900, 1,000 miles, like a distance. It might be the distance from Israel to Iran or less. We're not sure. I don't know where the Pakistan bases are. What is the size of the Pakistan Air Force and what kind of modern fighter jets do they have? Oh, they're like Israel. They're 420 combat capable aircraft, 8 to 900 total aircraft with tankers and transports and trainers and stuff like that. The most advanced fighter jets currently in service is generally considered the Chinese-built J-100E, the export version of the J-10C. They have 20 of them. Does Pakistan have any real stealth fighter jets? My guesstimate is they don't. Well, let's see. No. This means that the Pakistan Air Force planes can get tagged by the Iranian anti-aircraft systems. Even though they're antiquated, they could bring Pakistan planes down. This is a problem for Pakistan. If America keeps knocking out more and more radar, it makes it better and better for Pakistan. So Pakistan might at this point figure it's pretty safe for them to go in. I don't see Iran invading Pakistan. You know, could Trump get Afghanistan to go into Iran? I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe. I don't know. We know from prophecy Iran's going to go down, but we don't know for sure if Iraq and parts of Syria are going to go down with it, but it might be the case. And since Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, and Oman don't appear in the Bible, Jordan does, Saudi does, as in the form of Arabia, and Iraq, I don't know what they're called. No, Iraq is there. I don't know. Iraq's not there either. It's Elam, it could be. So, where are we at? They could be part of Elam or not. because Elam changed geographically over time because of military conquest. So we don't know exactly what the deal there is going to be, but it could be. And they're concentrating the Iranians on the Kurds in northern Iraq big time. And the Erbil airport in Iraq has been closed from the attacks from Iran. Yesterday, America said they hit underground arsenals of Iran and other targets in their strikes last night. The amount of ship traffic traversing the Persian Gulf is just about zero. Commercial ships like oil tankers and container ships, just about zero. A chemical tanker was boarded by an armed group off the coast of Yemen on Friday, today's Saturday, while it was transiting in the Gulf of Aden. The British military said. We don't have more details. Let's see, it's saying the United Kingdom Military Trade Operations Center said military authorities had reported that the vessel was boarded by unauthorized persons or personnel south of such and such province. A British maritime security firm called Ambray said Somali pirates are believed to have boarded the tanker, which does not have an armed security team aboard it. It could be pirates working in conjunction with the Houthis. So the Houthis could give them a green light to go play piracy and just give them a cut, 10% or something, I don't know. That in itself does serve to close the Red Sea because ships don't want to go through there. And these ships don't want to put 4 security guards there with rifles and have active gunfights at sea. They don't want that. They just want to stay away. They're not in that. They're there to make money. And when you're getting into gunfights, you're not making money. You're basically potentially losing your whole ship, which could catch fire from the gunfights, Listen to this. Millions of Yemen citizens took to the streets Friday afternoon to express their willingness to fight against Saudi Arabia and to support Iran. They're demonstrating in support of Iran. You heard of birds of a feather flock together. Well, this is the case of psychotics flocking together with the same delusional system. Yesterday, Kuwait reported infrastructure damage. Kuwait says an electrical plant and a water desalination plant were damaged in an Iranian attack. So Iran, you gotta listen, has begun attacking the electrical and the water in Kuwait, probably prepping for a ground invasion. If their power is out and their water desalination is out, Iran's going to have a very marked advantage. They're not sending their soldiers in there without water, believe me. They'll send truckloads of bottled water with their soldiers. You knock the electrical grid out, and then you invade, and the country is in grave distress. Why? Let's talk about why are they in grave distress. Well, the cell phone towers are going to fail, right? So your comms, that civilian communication is down. You're not going to turn the TV on and see the news, that's down. You go to get gas out of the gas pump at the gas station and it ain't pumping because the motor to pump the gas is out because the grid is down. So you don't know what's going on. You don't know the difference between rumors and reality. You think these people got shortwave radios and they're sitting there listening and getting good information? No, I don't think so. Yep, that's what you want to do when you invade. You know the crisis level Kuwait will be in without electricity, without the water. The rich ones are just going to get on their jets and take off. I don't know where they're going to go. America would be one place. They would probably, Great Britain is another one. If they're friendly with France, they could go to France. Switzerland is another one. Where else would they go? Those are the most popular places. Would be Switzerland, the UK, and America. Kuwait derives about 90% of its fresh drinking water from desalination plants. If these plants are knocked out, the country will no longer have fresh water for its population and they will have to leave and get scattered into every nation on the earth, fulfilling the prophecies of Elam in Jeremiah 49, beginning verse 34 to the end of the chapter, because it would be part of Elam. And Iran already started doing this. Now, let's try to see if we can get how many water desalination plants they have there. I don't know if this is available. Regarding Kuwait, do we know how many water desalination plants Kuwait has that are operating? Ay, ay, ay. 8. And they're all located along the Persian Gulf coast. And they produce the vast majority of their drinking water at 8. And they're on the coast, easy access. And one went out already. And they had more hit. They might be down to 6 or 5 now. I don't know. This isn't the first time. Wow. They might not want to take all the water out. They might just want to take half the water out to create a crisis. Or if there's 8, take 3 of them out. Leave 5. Everybody's still getting water to drink, but they're in crisis. Or the Iranians may not want that. They may want to reduce it to 1 or 2 or something. I don't know. I don't know. Or none. Iran warned numerous times that if its infrastructure was attacked, they would retaliate against all the infrastructure of the countries in the region. Well, they would be specializing in those hosting American bases, which is basically who's not hosting an American base? Lebanon doesn't have one. Gaza doesn't have one. And I think Oman does not have one. I'm not sure. Um, 67% of a poll, 67% of the people that responded to the poll uh, said they opposed the various new laws that the Knesset passed, like exempting the Haredi from the draft. And Netanyahu doesn't care. "21% of the people said they support these laws." And the remaining respondents said they don't know. Among the other questions in this poll that was done on Channel 12 TV or through Channel 12 TV, I should say, whether respondents or any of their relatives are considering leaving Israel if Netanyahu gets reelected and becomes prime minister again. the response was 23% said that either they would leave or had a relative that would leave. And 68% was saying no. The rest were unsure. That's an interesting one, huh? He's such a piece of garbage. Almost a fourth of Israel want to leave or have a relative that's going to leave or want to if he becomes prime minister again. Well, they were doing that with Trump. People were moving out of America when Trump won. Okay. The Lebanese army deployed in the first of the pilot zones where they're going to supposedly stop Hezbollah and disarm them. It's a joke. They'll never do it. They're a bunch of scaredy cats. They're not combat army. But we'll see. I believe they moved the Shiite soldiers in the Lebanese army away from these activities. So maybe something will happen, but I don't expect it. This is coming from Reuters. It sounds, I don't know how true, but it could be. After the Houthis, not Iran, after the Houthis attack on Saudi Arabia, Pakistan warned Iran that any attack against Saudi Arabia would be considered by Pakistan as an attack against Pakistan. And last night, Iran attacked Pakistan. Attacked Saudi Arabia, which is the same as attacking Pakistan. So the Iranians broke it last night. In reality, I was getting it wrong. No, they broke it last night. Let's see what happens. I seriously doubt Pakistan's going to attack Iran, but let's see what happens. The Iranian-backed Shiite militias in Iraq are offering a $10 million reward to anyone who kills Donald Trump. Trump is making such a mess of trying to get people to think he's tough as nails, and he runs scared all the time. He gets his gander up for a few days of war, and then he gets so scared because he has a conflict of interest, he runs away. He doesn't want his properties with his name on it anyway destroyed. And we got a lot of problems with this Netanyahu character. And there's a lot of people in Israel, and I'm one of them, that are wondering and speculating why we're not in the war against Iran and how long that'll last. See, Trump will tell Israel to go in and try to save Kuwait, and I think Netanyahu will say, no, we don't do that. And then Trump says, no, you don't tell me you don't do that. I tell you what you do and you don't do. And I don't know if Netanyahu will put up for that with that. A lot of people would be very upset if we were endangering soldiers for them. Very upset. Let me take a look at the live stream. See if we got questions or prayer requests or anything like that. Well, we had an Israel hater in here, Justice for the USS Liberty. So that's I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, Israel hit an American ship by accident, or I don't know what happened. I wasn't here. The guy that posted it wasn't here either. So he basically wants to see America attack Israel. See, now a lot of these people go to church too, and they want to see Israel get killed and destroyed, you know. So you got a lot of people like that. Let me see if I got any email requests for prayer or something. No, I don't think so. What is Google News saying? Let's take a quick look. U.S. launched the seventh night of Iran strikes as Hormuz conflict escalates. Yeah, it's escalating, all right. What is this saying here? Inheritance battles among Israel's wealthiest families, and now they could have been avoided. The Satan bots of Israel fighting with each other. Well, that's what I got. Um, I'm going to take a break from the translations today. I think we put a lot of time into the war, and I don't want to do a bad job on the translations. It's going to knock me out. So I'm going to do a prayer, and my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I pray for me and my wife, all the true believers, and their households, that we would have your peace, safety, protection, joy, calm, rest, shalom, peace, and your strength, stamina, and endurance from you, and your healing and recuperative power flowing through us, and for our animals and our pets, we would all be safe, secure, and happy, healthy, and whole. And I pray um, for the peace of Jerusalem. I pray for those of us that are homeless to get a shelter or a house or a place to live. And I pray those of us that need work find work, good work, and those of us that need clients or customers find those. And I pray we all have adequate finances and then some extra. And I pray that we would all understand the scriptures better. And I pray I could do better live streams and better translations. And I pray all this to you, my Heavenly Father, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And I pray for, now it'll be a little different, spiritual warfare. My Heavenly Father, now you can agree with these things even if it's a video as a true believer, and please do. My Heavenly Father, and agree in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, you know. Okay, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I loose from me and my wife, all the true believers and their families and households, any unclean spirits in any of these people is kicked out of them immediately, never to return again. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. You can agree with this too, true believers. And now, spiritual warfare. And regarding me and my wife, any of the true believers, their households and families, if there's any evil spiritual warfare directed or targeted at any of these people, that it would be cast null and void, of no value, no effect, forever, never to return in the same form or even a similar form for all time. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And if any darts of the enemy are directed at any of us, they miss. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. You can agree with these things. I think you need to understand this is a really big deal going on here, and it can very likely lead to the destruction of the daughter of Babylon. Okay? Believe me. And it can very likely also lead to the destruction of Edom, which is Yemen. Very likely. So we're at the cusp, or the cutting edge, of a lot of prophetic fulfillments, and they can come like that, just like Syria went out in 11 days. If you went to the experts around the world, they would have said anywhere from 9 months to 18 months. 11 days. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know the timing. You don't. Okay? Nobody knows the day or the hour. It could go down very fast, and it could usher in Elijah training the Levites. You don't know when the temple's going to come down, the next temple. You don't know this. Maybe Zechariah 12 with the siege isn't in place, but Malachi 3 is, and Elijah's training the Levites, and there's a temple. The glory of God of Israel didn't get here yet because we're not getting the offerings right, but that happens because it says so. And there's a lot of believers in Jerusalem. That could be you all. And we don't see anything in Malachi 3 or Zechariah 12 about the government of Israel. We see nothing. Where is the army? Where is the government? Where is the Knesset? Where are they? They're not in there. Does that mean they're not there? Well, by implication, maybe. I can't say factually that's the case, but it sure makes me wonder. Maybe they are there. So now I got to believe that they're letting Elijah train the Levites, talking about Yeshua constantly, of course, in a temple. And don't you think the ultra Orthodox and the government would try to kill Elijah? Well, maybe they tried. What would happen to them? Well, it'd be pretty much a bonfire with them in it. I mean, they'd get killed. These days are going to be nothing like when Yeshua came to earth. Nothing like that. Yeshua was not. Let me take a break and we'll cover this stuff. Hang on. I'll be right back. Hey guys, I'm sorry, I forgot to pray for somebody. Let me put this out there and you can agree with it. Heavenly Father, I pray for BB, for healing. Many things wrong. I pray for healing for BB and for salvation. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and please agree with that. Okay. See, this could trigger a cascade of events. Oil prices, oil supplies. See, let's say Trump wakes up. Oh, I gotta stop this invasion. Where are we at now? We're in July? October, he'll be ready to stop it. Where are they going to be in October? Well, they probably would already have gone through Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and probably working on the UAE. Maybe they got rid of the UAE and they went to Oman. Remember, they'll start, okay, Kuwait resists, what's going to happen? Don't resist. If you resist, we'll kill you. Kuwait resists. Then what does Iran do? They launch missiles and drones into apartments, businesses, hotels, malls, schools, hospitals. You got it? Bloodthirsty murderers that are psychotic, okay? How much, then what does Kuwait do? Trump, you gotta help us, you gotta help us. Don't worry, I'm there. And what does Trump do? Oh, you know, he plays the violin. He doesn't do nothing, right? What can he do? What can he do? Okay? He can't shut the missile cities. Don't you see this? That's why they're going to do the ground invasion. They're going to beat Kuwait down. You got it? They have not. They're hitting water desalination. Now, do you think that's scaring Kuwait? What about the royal family? Bunch of pig dictator slobs, okay? Rats, okay? The most horrible, despicable people you could imagine. They run like Hitler. They run like Attila the Hun. They run like the Caesars. They're terrible people. Terrible people. Okay? Horrible. They suppress their country. Okay? They suck the wealth up, and the people, they don't have people starving in the street. They got food. They got work. You know, but they're that bad. You know, in the late 1980s, Saudi Arabia finally made slavery illegal. Up until the late 1980s, Saudi Arabia had slavery. They're scum of the earth, these people. I'm telling you, they're garbage buckets. You have no idea. Okay? People in America or Europe, Canada or South America, women's rights. Women have no rights there. If a woman gets raped in these countries, she has to produce several male witnesses, at least 2 male witnesses that are going to go to court and say, I saw her get raped by this person. And that might not even get a conviction. Now, if she goes outside the house with a husband or a brother or a father or maybe even an uncle with her, will they rape her? Nah, the guy's a Muslim. They're not going to do that. That'd be very unusual, okay? She's dressed right. Nah, they wouldn't insult him like that, okay? But if they could get a woman alone, they just rape her. Okay? Nothing's going to happen under Sharia law. Which of these countries is under Sharia law? Well, which one isn't? I don't know which one isn't. Israel, Lebanon's not. I don't think Lebanon's under Sharia law. But they're not the focal point of this. Okay. There's no women's rights, okay? What would happen if Israel started with that? Well, I don't give women any rights. Oh, you pigs in Israel. They don't say anything about the Muslims. Why? Because Satan got the newspapers and the media. They don't say anything. Why doesn't Hannity sit there and say, these bums are persecuting women and picking on women. We need to get rid of people like that. He doesn't say nothing about that. Nor do any of the commentators. They don't talk about it. But I'm telling you, it goes on. What about gays? They take gays up to the roof and they hold them by their ankles and drop them off the roof. Why don't you hear about the gay people rising up against them? Because Satan doesn't want it. The media doesn't carry it. You understand? They're so rich you have no idea how rich they are. Okay? So what is Iran really trying to do with Kuwait? they might hit another water desalinator, they might hit another electrical generator, and then they're going to want some sort of a surrender from Kuwait. And what is that surrender going to be? Well, America, get out of my bases. You can't be here. Don't use my airspace. Don't fly your planes over my airspace. You can't have any soldiers in my country. Then what? Then Iran's going to send an army in there, not a big army, to maintain their control over Kuwait. And then, of course, when Kuwait sells oil again, it has to sell it off the US dollar. So they're not looking to have a knockdown battle with Kuwait. They're looking to damage Kuwait seriously enough where Kuwait's not going to resist their military. That's their idea of a ground invasion. You understand that now? Then comes Bahrain. Same thing. You see, they haven't really, okay, water desalinators and electrical grid first. If they don't comply, then you hit hospitals, schools, daycare, housing, hotel, malls, stores, government buildings. You understand? That's the sequence. So it's just a question of time till Iran's missiles are going to bring Kuwait to their knees. Now, what kind of a surrender Kuwait's going to have to give Iran, I don't know. In the early stages, I would believe if Kuwait throws the Americans out of the country, the Americans may or may not leave. But if he throws them out, what's Kuwait going to do if the Americans say, we'll leave next year? They'll go back to Iran and say, I can't do anything. They're going to leave next year. Iran is going to say, kiss your electricity and water goodbye. Said, I'll go back to America, you know. What's the end result? America might fly another 400 or 500 crack troops in there, like Rangers or something like that, or maybe 1,000 or something. You know, it's not going to do any good. You see, the missile cities were damaged by Iran and Israel months ago. Trump stopped the war like a brain-dead idiot, and they rebuilt those missile cities, but they didn't just rebuild them. They extra fortified them. They overbuilt them. Okay? They overbuilt them. Why? Because they don't want them damaged again by Israel and America. So it's going to be harder to damage it again. So how is Trump going to protect Kuwait? He's not. He can give them lip service, but they don't believe that. Their electrical grid went out and their water desalination went out. You don't think the Iranians are telling them, what do you think's going to happen Saturday night and Sunday night and Monday night? Now, I don't know what they want. I think early on they would settle for running the Americans out, telling the Americans they can't use their airspace, and that would be enough right now. Okay? And they would definitely want to occupy Kuwait with their military, because from Kuwait they could launch off into other countries. And would they be, if this happened, would they actually become friendly with Kuwait? Yes. Yes. They would stab Kuwait in the back down the road, but it would be friendly. Would they kill the civilians and rape the women? And no, I don't believe so. No. No. I think they'd leave that alone. Would they steal the wealth? No. Not if Kuwait just gets in, throws the towel in early. So what's Trump gonna do if their water desalinators get blown up? Send them 35 million bottles of Evian water? What's he gonna do? What's he gonna do? It takes 40 or 60 days to get a ship with water bottles over there. You know, the people would be dehydrated dead before then. Same thing with Qatar. Water desalinators, electrical grid, airports, ports, piers, American military bases, and then you start hitting you methodically the electrical grid and the water desalinators, and you tell them to throw the towel up, and they call Trump up. I gave you a $400 million plane, and this is what you do. You leave me, you hang me out to dry. Bahrain. So what does Qatar do then? Qatar resigns itself to the fact that Iran's going to destroy their electrical grid and their water desalinators, and their country's going to be kaputski, right? Or they tell Trump, we're finished. Keep the stinking plane, get out of Qatar, we're done. Now, when he tells him this, it means all his Trump casino resorts and golf courses, and all of this stuff that he's building in these Arab countries dies. It doesn't go anywhere anymore. Oh, poor Donald. All right, so then what happens? Well, the bases are gone. America got to pull out or defy them, which Trump may do. If, let's say, Kuwait goes back and says, Trump says he can't leave for a year, what do? We can't make him leave. The only thing the Iranians could do is shell the bases every day, which they're doing now. So maybe they've already asked Trump to pull his soldiers out and he won't go. So they do the same thing in Qatar, and then, but look, if they, they're going to be like, Al Capone. They're going to say, look, you got to get rid of you got to get rid of the Americans. If you can't get rid of the Americans, it's your problem. You let them come in the first place. It's up to you to get rid of them. They're attacking us and threatening our country and our livelihood, and you're letting them do it. And if you don't get rid of them, we're going to get rid of you. And then what happens? Well, they get rid of the water desalinators, they get rid of the electrical grid, and significantly damage the airports. And then America's got a real problem with their base. They might run it with generators, their own generators. They might put their own water desalinator, but they got a problem. Okay. And then there's always the fact that Iran could just come in and attack the Americans at the base. You know, the Kuwaitis stand down, and the Iranians come in with barrages of drones and missiles. See, America can keep attacking Iran, but they can't stop the flow of missiles. So what Trump will have to do is hit the Iranian electrical grid and hit the Iranian water desalinators. and hopefully he gets rid of Iran before they get rid of. No, we got to watch how this plays, guys. It's just Trump's just one comedy of errors, but it's pretty serious. But it's just one mistake after another. So, I think the Iranians are going to try to scare these countries, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, and Oman, by attacking the electrical grid and the water desalinators and basically get a surrender from them. Or a peace deal. I don't know. See, but their plan would be just to pull these people away from America, then they get America bases out of the region and they start controlling these other countries. These countries in the Gulf region are looking for somebody to protect them, and they're not finding what they're looking for. Instead of throwing all their money away on stupid things, they should have bought way more fighter planes, way more tanks, way more underground hangars for their aircraft, way more underground facilities for their military. They didn't do it because they trusted in America. So this progression of their invasion could happen with surrenders. The predominant concern that Iran has right now is to get the American bases out of the area. That's what their focus is. They're attacking the American bases in these countries every day. They want American bases out of here. They get America out of here, they're in control. The oil prices are not really going up yet. I'll take a look and we'll see what they are. But I hope I'm expressing the seriousness of this to you, because it's very, very serious. And it can lead to the attack on the United States rather easily. Oilprice.com. It's creeping up very slowly, but it's going up. 82.49 on the. Oh, wait a minute. No, I think I'm right. Yeah, 82.49 on the WTI, like the American oil, and 88.10 on the Brent, the European. So it's a steady drip up. It's not surging, but it's going up. And there's nothing Trump can do to reverse it except trying to suppress the prices. So I don't think it's going to be a long ride till Europe is at 100 and American is at 90, probably Monday or Tuesday, something like that, maybe Wednesday, and then once it hits 100, it'll start going up and up and up. Okay, that's what I got, guys. So, pray about this, and when the time's right, we'll do our spiritual warfare. This is not the right time. And I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm out.